It's been 10 years, almost to the day, that I came here and wrote Into the Green. And I'm back here, and it feels like the right time to go back into that universe and reflect on the writing process. And we've decided to do something that I've always wanted to do, and I don't know why we've not done it before, and that is to venture into the places that the story is set and perform some of the songs live. So I've got the actual guitar that Into the Green was recorded with, and we've got a stereo recorder. Ben's got a couple of cameras, and we're going into the green. It all started in 2012 when my family moved here to the French Alps. In those days, I spent most of the time with my head in the clouds of one fantasy universe or another, so when I first came here and saw the breathtaking landscapes, I suddenly felt like I'd fallen into one of the pages of a Tolkien or a C.S. Lewis novel. The landscape is just awe-inspiring. I think something in my head just sparked, and my imagination went into complete overdrive. And I started writing.
Beyond the misted valley where the mountains reach the sky, there dwelt a youthful shepherd boy, his flocks beside. With hair down to his shoulders, his eyes shine pale green.
I think I was driven by this insatiable drive that I think a lot of people have to somehow capture, to bottle up the things that we find beautiful so we can take them away with us, to make it yours somehow and to share it with others and say, this experience was really special and I want you to know what it was like too. And I think part of me thought, if I can write this place into music, I can come back here every time I listen to it.
Once the storm had passed on by, the stars were shining bright. As he breathed the evening air, his flocks were out of sight. He went to meet them, their tracks all that remained.
Into the Green was never meant to be a story about this place. It was a story inspired by this place. I think there's a difference. It's an exercise in escapism, really. It's a fantasy story.
Stood before the wicked trees that loomed ahead. He ventured inside them, now all alone. He was led into the wood where spells were laid and pine trees stood.
To be honest, I've always wished I could be an artist, like a visual artist, a painter or something like that, or good at drawing, because I've always wanted to take people out of this world and into another one, and I love how visual artists and illustrators get to do that instantly, whereas I guess music can do the same thing, but it's just in slow motion. So when I wrote Into the Green, I wanted to create a world where the illustrations had already been done for me. It's kind of like a storybook, but where you can walk into the illustrations. The idea was to write something very fluid and very organic, like the landscape, and also to be instructed by the things I saw around me. So I looked around and I saw some sheep, and I thought, okay then, perhaps it's a story about a shepherd and his sheep, And there are these almighty storms here where you see the clouds snaking in between the mountains, and then they come racing up the valley and rush towards you, and then whoosh, everything turns white and you're in the heart of the storm. That's where the phrase "the misted valley" came from. And I thought, what if something comes hidden in that storm, something bad, like something from an old folktale? It sounds a bit silly to say out loud, but I'd had this really vivid dream where I'd stumbled across this old gate, kind of like something from the secret garden or something like that. And when I went in, it led me to this overgrown, walled garden kind of place. I remember there was this small white flower in the middle of all the undergrowth, and something compelled me to go and touch it. And when I touched one of the petals, I suddenly saw that there was so much more around me that I hadn't been able to see before. Like there was this invisible world going on alongside this one all the time, but we just can't see it. And that flower, that moment, was like an anchor point between those worlds, like it lifted a veil.
Beach, the only sound, the only sound.
So later, I found out that this idea of a garden within a garden is a recurring idea in folklore, and the fact I'd dreamt all this up without even knowing it, it seemed a bit too strange an occurrence to pass up. It was like the story was just being handed to me, so it became the basis of the first song in the cycle. And I just let it write itself from there, really, pulling me along in whichever way my imagination took me, and whichever way it felt like the story wanted to be told. There's nothing profound about it, really, it's just escapism, and it was about the fun of writing it in the moment as much as anything. Musically, it definitely grew organically too. I approached it a bit more like writing a soundtrack rather than songs. It was structured around themes that developed and morphed to reflect the story. So there's that theme that I play on the guitar. I like to think of that as the forest theme. Kind of like, at that moment, the camera zooms out and reminds you where you are, and that's why that comes at the beginning and the ends of songs. Always links back to the first track, where that plays throughout. Then there's the main Into the Green theme, where I first sing, "He was led into the wood, where spells were laid and pine trees stood." And it was a bit of a game. I thought, how can I take that theme and how can I twist it and adapt it to make it fit all the different parts of this story? Could I change the time signature? Could I change the emphasis? Could I change the groove underneath it? And then when I had all these different versions of it, I thought, well, what is that trying to tell me? What place is that? What's happening in the story? Or sometimes it was the other way around. If something has happened in the story, well, how can I now make this theme work for that? And then each song has also got its own themes that come in to illustrate the characters or the places that are unique to those songs.
Softly like satin, the sun kissed the land. Slowly the shepherd boy awakes to the sound of the mountain. The sound of the mountain. Visions of yesterday come to his mind, of a glorious sanctuary and creatures that he left behind him. He left behind him. So to the edge of the wood he returned, his haven to find once again. He went spells were laid and pine trees stood.
This applied to the vocals too. These days I'm always searching for the hook and asking myself if it's easy to sing along to. But the vocal on Into the Green was a different way of thinking altogether. It was another instrument to develop the melodic ideas, as well as a vehicle to tell the story.
Silver now catches his eye. The rippling hands of time stare from the...
I liked the idea of the music following the story, as opposed to writing to fit the music. So if I needed a few extra beats to fit in some more words, then I did. And that's where all these odd timings and uneven bar lengths come from. It makes it an absolute nightmare to play live with other musicians, but on the recording it gives it this really fluid narrative flow.
Here within the enchanted wood, where spells were laid and pine trees stood. Dark shadows dwell in the depths of dungeons made of murky waters. Slime and sinew and black bones drowning where the creature lay, where the creature lay. Tender and fresh, the meat is steady now, ready for the slaughter. Slimy creatures in chains were writhing where the creature lay, where the creature lay, where the creature lay, where the creature lay. There deep down below the wood, where spells were laid and pine trees stood. The boy began to rise, reaching for the light. The saving line of hook and twine pulls him high.
It's strange how, since writing and recording Into the Green, the story has seemed to come true, or it's almost like the story was already written and I was just taking bits out of it and capturing it, observing it.
In the land of ivy green, where fur and foxglove set the scene, the shepherd laid down his head to rest a while. Neath the toadstool ceiling beams, whenever evil things have been, his companion is his tale of flocks and fiends. So they set off for the lair, a feather to ward the beasts away.
Not long after writing this, then my parents got some sheep, and weirdly, just like in the story, then they went missing. And you know, the local farmers went venturing around the place to try and get these sheep back, and it just seemed such a weird coincidence that in the very place Into the Green was set, this was happening.
They went deep into the wood where spells were laid and pine trees stood.
And this happens over and over again. So there was one year where there were reports of the wolves coming down from the mountains and attacking livestock. And that seems just like what happens in the first track of Into the Green. There's even a reference to wolves at the end in the last stanza. And then it didn't stop. when we went back into the forest this year to record some of the songs in the locations that they were written about, then I joked to Ben, because we were about to play the fourth song in the cycle, which is this very dramatic song where one of the characters is about to announce to the young shepherd he's got to go on this perilous journey, and in the middle of the journey then this almighty storm breaks out. So I joked to Ben before we started, saying, imagine if a storm broke out in the middle of this song. And then I had to really control myself and stop myself bursting out laughing, because as we played the song, it came to the most dramatic climax of the song, and in the few bars between me finishing one line and starting the next section, there was this almighty clap of thunder, perfectly on cue.
The flocks are now an offering in the halls of the wicked Gremlin King. Journey south for 20 days, through the misted valleys haze. Travel west and travel high, where the mountains reach to claw the sky. Above the cloud realm if you dare, tame the beast that's tethered there. Here within the enchanted wood, where spells were laid and pine trees stood. Before your journey wild and long, listen well and hear my song.
And then there was this ridiculous hailstorm, and these hailstones ended up the size of marbles, and we had to run and take cover, and I was there holding my guitar over my head, shielding myself from these massive hailstones, thinking, is it just me, or as I'm playing these songs, are they coming true?
How and why are there hailstones in summer? Hailstones in August. Look at them bouncing off the ground. Look at the size of these. And this poor guitar's been through some flack. It's been smashed twice, repaired 3 times, and I've just bashed a hole in it playing the dwarf. And now it's completely soaked through, having served as an impromptu umbrella. Well.
We were well and truly in the universe of these songs. I think in a way it was the place reminding me that it was its story to tell, not mine. If I had to push myself to find what Into the Green is about, It's a story about duty, I think. About having to do the brave thing, whether you like it or not. But on a broader level, it's about finding your own personal world you can escape to, and a reminder that sometimes it's important to just let your imagination run wild and have the freedom to go where it wants to go, where it wants to take you. It can be incredibly healing as well, and I hope if nothing else, these songs can inspire others to find their own space and find the time to discover their own version of Into the Green.
He reaches his hand, the brain disappears. Whoa.